It's Tuesday, March 7th. This is a pre-opening SPY report about 45 minutes before the open. After yesterday's red shooter bar, a little bit of a pause bar at the top of a broadening formation, you are expecting a little lower price action based on the fact that this bar itself usually should follow through at least to test yesterday's low and maybe move a little lower. And then if you just spread out the 15-minute chart, you can see on the way up there was kind of inefficient pricing up here. This is like what they call the fair value gap, and you could see price might want to come down and rebalance some of this action that moved pretty quickly through that zone. So, it's possible we head down here, but this is an area it could just be rebalancing before heading higher. We don't know. In a second, I'll get to some of the bigger picture conflicts in play, but at least for today, you're just going to go with, it's more of a bottom-up approach today, I think, where we're just going to have to look at this pre-market range. It sets up pretty nicely. The top of the range is near the midpoint of yesterday, so if we start green above that, then we might not be, reversing to the downside. It could have just been a pause. We could say we're starting above the midpoint of the prior day and heading higher, although that's not as likely. The more likely scenario is we kind of move down at some point, break below the pre-market low and break below yesterday's low, stay below the yellow line, which is the open of the week. That's kind of a key reference point for the rest of the week. Anything below that, we're biased to the downside short term. Anything above it, biased to the upside. So we'll see what happens. Ideally, the ideal trade would be to kind of take out this high, fail, and then start moving down. But we're just going to have to see how that opening price action unfolds. That's going to be kind of the bottom-up approach today and see where we want to go with a little bit of a bias to the downside. In the big picture, there are some conflicting signs. That's the tricky thing. You had this big green 3-bar last week, the outside bar, that in some cases that could follow through strongly the upside, but you're coming right into we discussed a fair value gap, this area here, the two failures that paused and that started lower. So this could just be a little pullback to that zone before we head down, but we have a long way to go before we really, determine, are we going to get to the bottom of this previous week? I mean, that doesn't look likely given this bar that, even if we head lower, you have a big buying, support down in this area. Should we even start lower? So the actionable signals are more going to come in the weeks ahead. I don't see any clear actionable signal. The continuation to the upside is tricky because of this double week that failed. Similar to up here, we had a double week that failed to the downside, and once we started up, we kind of went up for a while to take out liquidity. So were we just failing up here and coming down to take out this liquidity ultimately? I don't know, but at the moment, it's just a little bit of conflict in terms of the weekly chart where we really want to head. If I looked at, let me find one other 3-bar that continued. There was one. Well, it was this one in here. I thought it was. It was this bar right here. Like this, when this broke down here and then you came down and you had a big 3-bar, an upward, took out the highs and took out the lows, we continued strongly towards this liquidity. And at that point in time, if I go to the monthly chart, we had a big monthly failure as well. So the weekly bar that had a 3-bar to the downside, continuation, you felt strong was going to hit to that area. Now, I don't see on the monthly chart, the upward, we're at a point where we haven't quite reached the midpoint of the prior month to have that green weekly bar strongly, project up to those highs. And if anything, we have that double failure up here with the breakout to the downside, and now we're kind of pausing. So that's what I'm saying. This 3-bar is tricky to know where we head next with confidence, and that's why we're almost going to have to see how this week plays out, determine are we really failing up here, and then maybe getting a 3, 2 up, 2 down into, that'll be stronger into next week, or at this point, I don't love the 3-2 continuation. That's not really an actionable signal to the upside. So that's why, it's more of a day trading environment. Anyway, we'll see what happens today. If we head lower, let's just see. We got to really monitor the type of we can come down into this area, not really follow through all that strongly, rebalance some of this price action, and eventually start up, later in the week. That's possible. That would be a decent buy signal if we, kind of fail to kind of work our way towards some of these daily targets. Let's say we get a 2-down day but can't reach the low of this bar for some reason in the days ahead, then we can, get comfortable with the buy side and then see if we break out above, the weekly, open in the weekly high and maybe start all of a sudden getting back into this range up here. But anyway, that's the thing. We'll go over a lot of this stuff as the week unfolds, but for today it's more of a day trading day. Let's just see where price action leads us. We could definitely come down and rebalance some areas to the downside. The upside doesn't look as likely, but it's possible. So we'll just see what happens today. Bias to the downside, and just see kind of what unfolds as the structure, of the 15-minute chart, takes us through the day.